How's it going, Rogues Gallery, and welcome to another Shadowverse Evolve video here on Red Zone Rogue. Today, we have the return of our deck dive, deep deck speed run dive series. I'm not sure exactly what we're calling this series, but this is a series that we've done several times before, where we feature basically at least one of every single class currently in Shadowverse Evolve in a deck tech, plus sometimes more. These are essentially my own decks that I've built for the current Shadowverse Evolve kind of meta game. We are currently in the Omens Eternal season, so we have 9 decks to go over today, some of which are so much fun. So yeah, stay tuned for it. It's going to be a very long video, and you know, while you're at it, maybe like, comment, subscribe. I really appreciate it. And we also have deck lists in the description down below, so go ahead and check those out while I go over all of these decks and kind of give you the in and out of them as fast as I possibly can. I tried to be quick, but I'll be honest, this is going to be a long video, so buckle up, let's do it. First up, we have Destruction Rune, or Lashena Rune, or whatever you want to call this. This is a tried and true control deck. My leader of choice here is Daria. We do have some tokens that we'll go over when the time comes. Of course, here's our Evo deck. We'll kind of go over the sleeves too, just because I like to theme my sleeves around all of the decks. This deck has a lot of Rune staples, so if you've been playing RuneCraft for a long period of time, you'll already have a lot of staples like Agnes Tachyon and Merlin, of which we run a full playset of each. These are just really powerful cards that have resiliency in regards to your spells, being able to get those back. So we're running a 3 of Agnes in the main board. Whenever you play a spell, you can give an enemy follower -1/-1, which is very strong. And then for the Evo version, of which we are running another full playset of, on Evo, you can get a spell from your cemetery and add it back to your hand, which is really strong. So, Agnes Tachyon, very good. Of course, we have Merlin. This is going to be in almost every Rune deck until the end of time. It's a 2/3, and on Fanfare, you just got to search your deck for any spell, reveal it, and add it to your hand. And we have a little, what I'm calling a Merlin package that will, well, we'll talk about the Merlin package now at Merlin. So essentially, the Merlin package is a toolbox of cards that we can go and search for with Merlin that we just run a single copy of in the deck. We have a bunch of other, tons and tons of other spells that we want to play around with, but these are the one-ofs that are just like very situational. So we have a 1 of Execution, because I found that I really need just an unconditional kill spell, and this is the most efficient one, and it can just destroy any card, so it can hit amulets too. We have Glizare, so we are actually running the Gilnelys package in this deck, and so this one does have the ability to have the full value if you have Gilnelys. It's just a 1-drop spell that you can banish any enemy follower if you have Gilnelys, or you just deal it 2 damage. We have a Truth's Adjudication. This card's really strong. This is what I'm running instead of Demonic Strike, because for 3, you can choose basically one of these following effects. You can either draw 2 cards, deal 3 damage to the opponent, or deal 3 damage to one of their followers. And if you have some mage followers on the field, you have 2, then you can pick 2 of them. We don't have a ton of mage followers, to be honest, but Merlin is one of them at least. And then we have our 1 of Witch Bolt, which is just a 3-drop, deal 5 damage to an enemy follower. And if there's an Evoed follower on your field, you get a draw card, which is really good. So that's just kind of our... well, that's our Merlin package. Of course, with Merlin, when you evolve Merlin, she becomes a 4/3, and then on Evo, you can pick a spell that costs 3 play points or less in your cemetery, and just play it for free. Of course, we're running the full playset of Evo Merlins as well, and basically every single spell in the deck, with the exception of Execution, we can hit off of Merlin. So we can play any of these for free from Merlin. I still think the Execution is worth having, though. Even though it doesn't work with the Merlin Evo. All right, so now we have our Lashena cards, our idled cards. So let's go over Lashena, because she's the key card of this deck. So Lashena, she's a 2/4 for 4, and on Fanfare, you put a Destruction in white and a Destruction in black into your EX area. That's all she does. We're running a full play set of her. What do those tokens do? Well, the Destruction in black is a 2-drop amulet. By the way, They're both amulets. It's a 2-drop amulet that says, at the start of your main phase, deal 2 damage to each enemy leader. The destruction in white is the opposite, though it only costs 1. And it says, at the start of your main phase, you gain 2 life. So with these each on the field, every turn, you deal 2 damage and gain 2 life. And I've had games where I've had 2 of each of these in play, and you deal 4 damage and gain 4 life. And don't be afraid to go up to 3 or 4 of these out on the field. I would not go to 5 unless you are 100% sure, because you still want to have that 1 extra space to play your followers. But if you go up to 4, it's pretty strong getting that 4 or 8-point life swing every single turn, right? You gain 4, they take 4. It's pretty powerful. So this is kind of what the deck evolves around. We want to get a couple of these on the field and then remove all of our opponent's stuff and then just kind of like grind them out. Like I said, this is a tried and true control deck, all backed up by our best girl, Lashana here. Now we have some Lashana support, or just good support for this deck in general. We have the Servant of Destruction. This is just a 2-drop 2/2 that can evo for 2, but if you have at least 3 Idolatry cards on your field, the evo becomes 0. The Destruction in black and Destruction in white are Idolatry cards, as well as Lashana herself. He is also a Idolatry card as well, so keep that in mind. But the Evo version is pretty good. So he's just a really, really efficient removal type card. He becomes a 4/4, and then you select an enemy fall on the field and deal 2 damage to it and the leader. So this helps close out the games. And he goes from a 2/2 to a 4/4. So a 2-drop, basically Evo for free, 4/4, shoot something for 2, and also the leader. Really good. So we're running a full playset of those in the Evo deck. And then we have a full playset of the dude in the main deck. And then here is our Gilnalese package. Gilnalese here, let's actually go grab the Destruction as well, or rather the Cravings Splendor. So Gilnalese is a really, really powerful card, and she works really, really well with this deck just because we're a control deck and we want to get to the late game. So she is essentially a 3/5 with Bane. So she's essentially a 3/5 with Drain, and on Fanfare you can pay an additional 3 play points and then search your deck for an Apostle of Craving and a Craving Splendor, put them both into EX area, then you shuffle your deck, and then on Fanfare, if each player has 10 minimum play points, you draw 3 cards, and then also whenever you play a neutral card, you deal 1 damage to each enemy leader, which is really, really good. So you can go and search up, where they are, they're right behind her, duh. You go get your Apostle of Craving, which is a 3-drop 2/2, and if there's a Gilnalese on your field, this card costs 3 play points less to play from EX area, so he's free. And then on Fanfare, you select an enemy, or you select a follower on the field and give it Rush. So you can give Rush to our Gilnalese, and then he also evolves. He's the last Evo card in our Evo deck, and he becomes a 3/3. On evolve, you select another follower on the field, deal 3 damage, and give it +3 attack. We can give that to our Gilnalese, so deal 3 damage to Gilnalese, and then she becomes a 6 attack Drain with Rush, which is just super, super good. This is a really, really good combo in our deck. Helps us gain life back. You can do a bunch of like nice 2, 3-for-1s because you can do a thing where you give Gilnalese Rush, deal 3 damage to an opposing ally, and then Apostle Craving also has Rush, so you can kill something with that enter effect, kill something with Gilnalese, kill something with the Apostle. You can get a lot of board advantage out of this. And then also, on top of that, you just go and grab one of the best removal spells in the game right now, which is a 3-drop Quick Speed. If there's a Gilnalese on your field, this costs 3 less to play from your EX area. And then you just deal 4 damage to any enemy follower and you heal for 1. We're running a full playset of those. And then we're just running a 2 of Gilnalese and a 2 of the Apostle of Craving. Like I said, 1 of in the Evo deck. This is a really, really, really powerful package. Really synergistic. All right. Next up, we have Riko Kashimoto, Plan Perfection. Just a nice little 2-for-1. Very powerful. Just have to, note we can't have any other allied followers on our field, but it's just followers, right? So you can still have your Omens or your Destructions, right? You can have your Destruction in black and your Destruction in white on the field, and then you could still trigger this because she just cares about not having any other followers on your field, which is great. So you can attack into something, blow something up, deal 3 damage. Just a really, really nice card. So I run 2 of her. And then for the spells are pretty simple. So let's go over the easiest ones first. We have Lamplit, Training of a Witch to Be, Instant or Quick Speed, deal 2 damage, really, really strong. Then we have Surefire Bullet, quick speed, deal 3 damage or 4 damage to an Evo follower. Really, really strong. And then we have Rime Wind, which is a 2-cost, quick speed, bounce an unevolved follower to the opponent's hand. Or if you have Spell Chain 10, put it on the bottom of the deck instead. This card's really strong, but there's a ton of just insanely powerful evolved followers, which is why I still think it's very relevant to run your execution. And then we have our Lashena support card. So we have our Monochromatic Destruction, which is just a 2-drop, and you select an enemy fall on the field and deal it 2 damage. And then if there's at least 2 Idolatry cards in your field, deal 2 damage to the leader, and you gain 2 life. So it's 2 damage to a follower, 2 damage to the leader, and you gain 2 life. Very, very strong. Obviously, we're running a full play set of these. And then finally, we have our Destructive Refrain. This is just a simple 1-drop where we can go search for a Lashena, which is great. Or we can pay an additional 2 play points to deal X damage to each enemy follower, where X is the number of Idolatry cards on the field. So this is another reason why it's, sometimes good to actually have 4 of these out, right? 2 blacks, 2 whites, maybe 3 blacks and 1 white, however you want to do this. Maybe even a bunch of whites, I don't know, depending on the situation. But being able to deal 4 damage to the opponent's board is very, very strong. So yeah, that is our Destruction Rune. Next up, we have Sanguine Abyss, one of my favorite decks in the entire game right now. And I just realized the Rune deck took a long time to go over, so we're going to try to make this one fairly quickly. In fact, we have, 8 more decks to go through. So our leader of choice for this deck is Urias, though I am getting Cerberus soon. We have some token cards. Most of them are for, you guessed it, Cerberus with Mimi and Coco, as well as some ghosties here. We definitely like our ghosties in our deck. And then we have our Evo deck with these beautiful, beautiful sleeves. All right, so Sanguine Abyss is essentially an aggro deck that looks to burn down our opponent at the cost of our own life. We use Valnarek, the Omen of Lust, as kind of our central piece, but we have a lot of just really, really efficient cards that go into this, as well as a couple high-end cards that just have Storm to help us kill our opponent. We also have some cards that deal us damage and give us some advantage, so we can facilitate a lot of these sanguine effects. So for example, Valnarek is just super, super powerful. I want to read her out just because she's so good. She's a 2-drop 2/2, and then if you have Sanguine active, which means you've taken damage on the turn, she gets Storm, and then on strike, she deals X damage to each enemy leader, where X equals the number of times you have lost defense this turn. And then if your leader's defense is exactly 7, she gets +2/+2. We don't really care about that as much. It can come up sometimes. I've had it come up at least once. But she's just a resilient 2/2 that can have Storm and does additional damage. And we have ways to get Valnarek back and just do a bunch of stuff. So this is a key part to our deck. And also she's very lovely. Demonium is just really good. He's going to be in both of our Abyss decks. He's just a staple. He's a 2-drop 2/3 with Ward that you can give him Bane. Also, you'll lose defense, so we can trigger our Sanguine effects. And then when he dies, you heal, which is really good. Powerful card. Disciple of Lust is very simple, 1-drop 1/1, and when it attacks, or on Fanfare, deal 1 damage to each leader, and then on Strike, deal 1 damage to each leader. So this is a good way to enable our Sanguine effects, really powerful. Similarly, we have Ambling Wraith. He's just a 1-drop 1/1, Fanfare, 1 damage to each leader, and then, he's a 2/1, so he attacks really well. Another good way to enable Sanguine for us. We have 3 of the Rune. We also see this in our Control Abyss deck, which we'll go over in a minute. 3-drop 3/3, Necrocharge 10. You can select an enemy fall on the field that costs 3 play points or less and destroy it. And then while this is on the field, any spell an opponent plays costs 1 more, which is good. And then when you Evo him, he evolves and becomes a 4/4 that says each opponent discards a random card. And he still has that taxing effects too. So we're running 2 of him in the Evo deck, and then 3 in the main. He's just really efficient. Does what he wants to do. Next up, we have our Playful Necromancers. We're running 3 of her. This is a starter deck card and a really, really good one of my favorite cards in the game. She's just a 3-drop 3/3, and then when you evolve her, she becomes a 4/4 that summons 3 ghosts. And if you didn't know, ghosts, we're running 2 by the way in the Evo deck. Ghosts are simple. They are just They're just 1/1s, and with Storm, and at the end of your turn, you banish it. So you get a 4/4, and then you get a bunch of ghosts to jam on in and deal a bunch of ghosty damage. It's great. She does a lot of damage. Next up, we have Cerberus. This is another Abysscraft staple. I'm still running 4 of my girl Cerberus here, and she's just super efficient, right? You can Evo her. She's a 3/3. When you Evo, she becomes a 5/5, and then you get some Mimi and Coco tokens. Mimi and Coco tokens are spells that you get in your EX area. One of them deals 2 damage to an enemy follower. The other one can pump your follower by 2 attack. So you can combine that with some of our Storm followers to do a lot of damage. So yeah, got Cerberus. This is approaching our top end because she's a 4-drop, and to Evo her costs 2. So we're running 3 in the main, and we're running 3 in the Evo deck as well. We always want to evolve our Cerberus. Next up, we have Soul Dealer. The Soul Dealer is great. As a 4-drop 6/5 that has Ward, and on Fanfare it deals 3 damage to your leader, so it does turn on your Sanguine. We're running 2 in the main deck, but the important part is when you Evo him, running 2 Evo as well. When you Evo him, he becomes a 7/6, and then you select an enemy fall on the field, you destroy it, and then you heal for X, which is the X, or X equals the selected follower's attack. So this is a great way to heal back up, and we really need those healing effects in this deck because we're going to deal a lot of damage to ourselves. So Soul Dealer is really, really good. I might actually prefer to swap the Cerberus and the Soul Dealers around to have 3 Soul Dealers, 3 and 3 Soul Dealers, and 2 and 2 Cerberus. That might be the better play. Next we have Apostle of Lust. This card's great. 4/4/4. You can activate him and take 1 damage, so we activate Sanguine, and then select a follower that costs 2 play points or less in our cemetery and put it onto the field, so that can get back our Valneric, and then of course getting back Valneric and having the Sanguine gives her Storm and yada yada. So it's just, once again, she's so good. She's the linchpin of our deck. And then we also have another effect with the Apostle of Lust. When another demon follower is put on our field, then we heal for 1, which is great. And we do have some demon followers on the field, like Valneric and Demonium, which is great. So once again, good way to get some life back. Run 2 of him. And then our last couple cards for the followers are pretty simple. Dark General, 4-drop 5/5. If you have Sanguine, she gets Storm. Just a great way to finish the game, right? I've won many, many games of just dropping Dark Generals with Storm and winning the game. So I run 3 of the Dark Generals. And then my final kind of one of pet card is Howling Demon, 5-drop 5/4. You can Evo for 3. Fanfare, select an enemy fall on the field and deal it 4 damage. If Sanguine is active for you, you deal it 8 damage. But the best part about this card is the Evo. So when you Evo our Howling Demon, he becomes a 7/6, so he becomes quite big. He gets Storm, and then if Sanguine is active for you, you heal for 5. So once again, get another big heal, and then 7 damage to the face, and we all know how good Forte is, 7 damage to the face, quite good. Yeah, so we have one of the Howling Demon. And then we have some support cards. Just generally speaking, we have a Dire Bond. I have been considering swapping this out for Soul Conversion, so I think you can do either of these. They're just kind of like draw spells. Dire Bond helps with our Sanguine, but sometimes it's a big detriment if we hurt ourselves too much and then we just get aggroed out. So it's just a 1-drop amulet. Fanfare, deal 1 damage to your leader and you draw a card, and then you can pay 2 and then put it into your cemetery and take 1 damage and draw a card again. So we can get multiple instances of Sanguine and draw a bunch of cards, but you just gotta be careful with it. So running 2. And then we have Razorry Claw, great burn spell, 2-drop, 3 damage to an opponent, and then 2 to ourselves. So activate Sanguine, can burn our opponent out. Just be careful about stuff like Lyriel. We'll talk about her later. Next we have Wings of Lust, just a great card for Valneric here. 1-drop. You can choose up to 2 of the following. So you can select a follow on your field and give it Rush, and then you take 1 damage. You can select an enemy follower on the field and deal it 2 damage, and then also we take 1 damage. Or we can deal 1 damage to our leader, draw a card, and discard a card. So basically, this is going to deal us some damage, and we get some effects. It's just really good with Valneric in general. And yeah, it's just really, really, really good. And then speaking of Valneric, here is the Embracing Wings. 3-drop, select an enemy from the field, destroy it. We take 2 damage, and then we select a Valneric from our cemetery, and then we add it to our hand. which is really, really good. So just another way to get the Valnaric back. So yeah, this is essentially, like I said, an aggro deck. We want to go face, but it does have some late game staying power with something like Howling Demon and the Apostle of Lust and the Soul Dealers. So, you know, I like this deck. It's fairly resilient. You just have to make sure not to kill yourself. Next up, we have Control Abyss. This deck is all about forcing our opponent to discard cards from their hand, as well as, you know, control the board. Don't pay no mind to these tokens. We actually don't really need the tokens. Here is our Evo deck, and of course, our lovely matched sleeves. That's one of my favorite parts, just matching all the sleeves. All the actually main deck sleeves for these are Dragon Shield dual mats for every single deck here. My favorite sleeves, obviously I sleeve up my decks and my dual mats. All right, so we have some Bellringer Angels. This is the first time we're going to see Bellringer Angel, but not the last in this video. We have a lot of Bellringer Angels, and they're just really good. Simple. It just gums up the board, and when it dies, we draw a card, and it also has Ward. Just a great card for mid-range and control decks. Here's the Monium Punk Devil again. Like I said, 2/3 Ward. We can give him Bane, and then when he dies, we heal, which is really, really good. Sometimes we give him Bane, sometimes we don't. It all depends on what our opponent is doing, and if we think we're going to get value out of that. Essentially, if our opponent has things that have higher than 2 health, it's probably worth it to give him Bane. Here we have the first appearance of Fina as well. It's another card that you're going to see in many decks going forward. Fina is a 3/2 for 2, great stats. And then on Fanfare, we can look at the top 5 cards of our deck and get a 1-drop, or we can select an enemy follower that costs 1 and destroy it. We're running 2 Finas in the deck, and she's just really, really good. Next up, we have Rune again. We saw a full playset of him in the Sanguine Abyss. We're seeing him again here. He's just so good. We get that Necro Charge 10 to destroy an enemy leader or enemy follower that has 3 play points or less. He has that taxing effect, and then he has the Evo effect of forcing our opponent to discard a card at random. So we have 2 of him in the Evo deck there, earning 3 of him in the main deck. Next up, we have another card you'll see a lot of going forward. This is Lariel Archer Throne. She's so annoying, but she's so good in these kind of control decks. She is a 3-drop 2/5 that at quick speed, she can deal 2 damage to each enemy leader. This is great to do at the end of their turn. And then while she's on the field, your enemy leader doesn't take ability damage, which is insane. It just nullifies all burn spells and burn damage, and she's very, very strong. So we're running a full play set of her. Super annoying. Next up we have one of my favorite 2-for-1, 3-for-1 cards, Maruzensky from the Umamusume set. She's a 3-drop 3/3. You can Evo her for 1. You can also race her, but we're not running any other racing stuff. We're not running carrots. On Fanfare, if you have Necro Charge 10, you select an enemy follower on the field and give it -4/-4. And then on Evo, good old Maruzensky here becomes a 4/4 herself, and then we get to select another enemy follower on the field and give it -2/-2. Running 2 in the Evo deck, and running 3 in the main deck. Dude, she's so good. She can get a nice little 3-for-1. So she can give something -4/-4. Evo, giving another thing -2/-2, or the same thing, depending. And then she can also jam in and attack. Very strong. I like this card a lot. Next up, we have Soul Dealer. Like I mentioned in the previous segment, if you didn't watch it, Soul Dealer, 6/5, Evo for 2, Ward. On Fanfare, you deal 2 damage or 3 damage to your leader, which is kind of a bummer in this deck because we don't really care about Sanguine. However, on Evo, you gain a bunch of life and you blow up a follower. And he also becomes a 7/6 with Ward. So we have 2 in the Evo deck, and then we have 2 in the main deck. Great card. Next up, we have a tried and true card. This is Erd. Erd is a very simple kind of just catch-all removal Evo follower. 4-drop 2/2. She Evos for 1. Fanfare, you select an enemy follower on the field, and then you put it into its owner's EX area. And then when you Evo Erd, she becomes a 3/3, and then on Evolve, select a card in an opponent's EX area and banish it. So she can basically just banish anything for 5 play points, and then she also is a 3/3 that can attack. Yeah, she's really good. Just running a 1 of each in both. Here we have some silence support. So this is the Apostle of Silence, 4-drop 4/4, Evo for 1. At the start of our end phase, select an enemy leader. If there are at least 3 cards in its controller's hand, deal it 3 damage. So yeah, it's pretty good. but it also has an Evo effect. We're running 3 of these in the main board. Oh yeah, here's the Bellringer Angel. We're running a 1 of Evo Bellringer Angel. I skipped over this quickly. She can Evo for 2 play points and deal 2 damage to a follower. Just a really good tempo card. Yeah, I like having the 1 of Bellringer Evo. Anyway, the Apostle of Silence becomes a 5/5, and on evolve, you select an enemy follower on the field, and you deal 3 damage. And then if there are 3 cards in the or 3 cards or less in the controller's hand, you just destroy it, which is great. And then at the start of your end phase, select an enemy leader. If there are 3 cards or less in the controller's hand, deal 3 damage. Yeah, so a nice little removal dude. So running 2 of him in the Evo deck, and like I said, 3 in the main. Here's just a nice bread and butter control card, Dark Angel Olivia, 5-drop 5/5. Choose 2 of the following, gain an Evo point, heal for 3, draw a card, or each opponent discards a card. Running the full suite of Olivias because she's just really good. We want to make our opponent discard some cards. Next up, we have Dark Alice, 6-drop, 6/6 with Rush. Strike, each opponent discards a card. Once again, discard is great. And then last words, you banish the top 10 cards of your deck, and then she comes back into the field, and then you have to discard a card. Running a full set of Dark Alice, just a really, really nice, efficient card. We're also running some Alu cards that help us finish the game. You could potentially run some other stuff instead of Alucard, like Azazel, but I like Alucard. Alucard is a 7-drop 4/4 with Storm, Necro Charge 10, he gets +2. And then on strike, you select an enemy fall on the field and you deal 4 damage, and then you heal for 4. So once again, I like the controlling aspect of this. Healing us, killing our opponent's stuff, it's great, and you can also just punch him in the face for 6, which is good. So running 2 of him. And then the last few cards are controlling spells and such. So we have a Path to Purgatory. It's a 3-drop, fanfare, draw 3 cards, and you take 3 damage. And at the start of end phase, if your leader's life is 6 or less, you basically deal 6 damage to each enemy following the field. Really nice little board wipe at the end of the game, or when you're really low. Running 2 of Angelic Snipe, just a nice little 1-drop, deal 2 damage to any follower. Really, really good against stuff like Sword, which we'll talk about shortly. We have Thundering Roar, 2-drop, Necrocharge 10, you can choose both, or otherwise you choose 1. Each opponent discards a card at random, really good, or you select an enemy from the field and deal 3 damage. So 3 damage and discard for 2, very strong. And then finally, we have a nice removal spell here with Silent Purge. You select an enemy follower on the field, destroy it, and then its controller discards a random card. Yeah, really solid. This, like I said, this deck is all about discarding cards and, you know, controlling the board. That's the name of the game here. Control the board, control the hand, and control the game. Yeah, solid. There's some other inclusions that you could do, like you can maybe swap out Erd and the Soul Dealers and maybe some other stuff for stuff like Crazed Executioner to get that selective card discard. But I wanted to go for a more, I don't know, more controlling variant of it. But I think that's still a good option. Next up, we have another one of my favorite decks of this format. This is my Control Haven deck. Our leader here is Lorena, and she has just the best voice lines, the best. They're all like gym puns. And then here's our Evo deck. This is kind of like my flex Evo deck, just because I really love Jeanne d'Arc here. We have 4 sleeves. These are our beautiful sleeves. Once again, big fan of Jeanne d'Arc. And let's go over the deck. The deck itself is pretty simple, but super, super fun. There's a lot of just controlling cards. And, well, I get to use some of my favorite cards like Deus Ex Machina. So let's go over Deus Ex Machina first because she's a big part of the deck. Not a lot of other decks run her. So she's a 5-drop 4/6. At the start of your end phase, choose one of the following. You can discard your hand and draw 4 cards. So this is actually really, really, really strong against Discard Abyss. And then, or you can choose to recover 4 play points, which is also really, really good. Choosing to recover 4 play points and leaving those play points open for Acolyte's Light or Craving Splendor on our opponent's turn is just really, really strong. We have a lot of quick speed effects that we can play on our opponent's turn so we can get maximum value out of our Deus Ex Machina. That's kind of like the name of the game here. We also have some quick speed effects on stuff like our Globe of the Starways. So yeah, and this deck gets even more support in the next set, so I'm really excited for that. So yeah, I really like Deus Ex Machina here. We also have more Bellringer Angels. Once again, just comes up the board, draws a card. For this one, we do not run a copy of the Bell Ringer in the Evo deck. So I sometimes forget which decks I do and don't have the Evo Bell Ringer. The reason we don't is because we have so many cards that we want to Evo in this deck that are very, very important. So didn't have room for the Bell Ringer. Such as this card, Apostle of Repose. This is another card that gives us play points at the end of our turn. So this is a 3-drop, 2/4. At the start of each opponent's main phase, recover 1 play point. And you can Evo her for 2. This card's pretty sweet because when we Evo her, she basically kills something, which is great. So the Evo version, she becomes a 3/5, and she says, on evolve, select a reserved enemy follower on the field and banish it. Reserve basically means that they're standing up, that they're untapped, not engaged, essentially. And then it says, at the start of each opponent's main phase, recover 2 play points, which is also very, very good. And we're running 2 of her in the Evo deck. Just being able to banish anything that's reserved is super, super strong. Next up, we have Zoe. I really, really like Zoe. I run this over Priest of the Cudgel because she's just unconditional removal. She's a little bit more expensive, and she hits us a little bit, but I think she's super, super good. So Zoe is a 4-drop, 3/3. She evils for 1. Fanfare, she deals 2 damage to our leader, and then we put the top 2 cards of our deck into the cemetery, but we draw a card, right? So we take 2 damage, we mill 2, and we draw a card. However, we always, always, always want to evolve her, because when we evolve her, she becomes a 4/4, and then on Evo, select any enemy follower on the field and banish it. It's just unconditional banish, and she becomes a 4/4. So we're running a full 3 of Zoe in the Evo deck, and we're running a full 3 of Zoe in the main deck, and also she has this gorgeous promo. So I'm a big fan of Zoe. She's really good, and you know, I will argue that I think she's comparable to Priest of the Cudgel. Drawing the card is so good. Like, taking the damage can be rough in some circumstances, but the unconditional banish and the drawing the card, just so good in a control deck. Next up, well, speaking of which, good in control decks, Jeanne d'Arc. This is our board wipe of the deck. We're not running Temes's Decree, so instead we have stuff like Jeanne d'Arc. So she's a 4-drop, 3/4. She's one of the cards in the very first set, so like being able to still run these cards is awesome. And then she evos for 2, and on Fanfare, deal 2 damage to each enemy follower. We're running a full play set. And then for the Evo, you've probably seen her already. We're running 2 Evo Jeanne d'Arc. She becomes a 4/5, and then she also deals 2 damage to each enemy follower on the field. And then we give all of our other followers +2 defense, which is really, really good. So if you play her in Evo, that's 4 damage to your opponent's field, and then +2 health to your field. She's super, super strong. Really, really good against a lot of the decks out right now. Next up, we have our big boy, Marwyn, the Omen of Repose. So Marwyn is a 4-drop, 4/4. You can Evo him for 4, or you can skip your next turn to Evo him. And I think both of those are really valid options. Marwyn is disgusting. So what makes him so good that you'd actually want to skip your next turn? Well, he becomes an 8/8 with Ward and Aura, and he says on evolve, increase your maximum play points by 1, give our leader +3 health, and draw a card. So skipping our turn, we basically get that turn back, sort of. But we can also play the 4 play points and Evo him and still get all these effects. Sometimes if you just jam Marwyn out and immediately Evo him by skipping our next turn, your opponent just sometimes can't deal with it because he has Aura. Yeah, Marwyn's really good. Marwyn's very, very good. And then we have our second and final haymaker of the deck, Heavenly Aegis. Heaven rebukes you. He's an 8-drop, 8/8. 8-drop, 8/8 can evolve for 2, or you can Evo by discarding 3 cards. He has Aura, and it says this card can't be destroyed by abilities, but it can be destroyed by damage, except when it evolves. When Heavenly Aegis evolves, it becomes a 10/10, still has Aura, and it says for the rest of this turn and during each opponent's next turn, this follower doesn't take damage, and it still can't be destroyed by abilities. So he's just unkillable for the turn that you Evo him. 10/10 unkillable. Heavenly Aegis is insane, and I've won multiple games by just going Heavenly Aegis, pass, Heavenly Aegis, pass. Like, he's just unkillable. So, yeah. Also, he has 10 attack. Crazy. We also have a way to give him Ward, by the way. I'll go ahead and get the Aegis combo, because we are running the Aegis combo in the deck. So this is Guardian Sun. It's just a 1-drop, and you select a fall on your field, and you give it Ward. You can also pay 2 play points, put it in the cemetery, and then give +2/+2 to one of your ward followers. You can give it to Marwyn even, because Marwyn also has ward. But giving our Heavenly Aegis, our 10/10 unkillable Heavenly Aegis ward, makes us also unkillable for the turn for the most part, outside of like burn spells and stuff. It's an insane combo. And you can search them both up with Seraph here. So Seraph is a 6-drop amulet. This also can't be destroyed by abilities. And it says at the start of your end phase, you put a prayer counter on this. Then if it has at least 4 prayer counters, you put it in your cemetery, heal 10, then search your deck for 2 cards and put them into your EX areas, and those cost 0 to play. So you can go get your Aegis and your Golden Sun, immediately play them both, Evo your Aegis, and then you're good to go. Or if you don't need the Guardian Sun, you can grab 2 Aegises. You can grab an Aegis and a Marwyn, an Aegis and Zoe, or a Deus Ex Machina if we need card draw. Yeah, very strong. Very, very strong. So that's our one of Seraph. You know, since we're going over the amulets, we have 2 more amulets. They're both simple. Sacred Plea is an amulet that lets us draw cards. It's a 1-drop, lets us draw some cards. It's good. And we also have Globe of the Starways. It's a 2-drop. We get to, on Fanfare, go search for an amulet and then put it in our hand, and then we can basically play 2 play points at quick speed to draw a card and heal for 1. This is good. The amulets that we go search for, you can always get another globe if you just kind of want to run the globes, but you can grab a Sacred Plea if you want to draw a bunch of cards. You can grab your Seraph if you want to set up, or you can just get your Guardian Sun if you already have your Aegis. So, yeah, really good. And then the final cards in the deck, this is just kill spells, like just kill spells and ways to get Marwyn. So like Surefire Bullet, you'll see it a lot. Once again, 2-drop, 3 damage to a follower, or 4 if it's evoed. Craving Splendor, once again, 3-drop, 4 damage to anything. And we also heal for 1. We're not running Gilnally, so it's just a 3-drop that deals 4 damage. Acolyte's Light, 4-drop, banish any enemy follower, and we also heal 2. Really, really good. And then our final card is the Saviors. We can either go search our deck for a Marwyn, put it in our hand, or select an enemy follower with 2 or less defense and banish it, running 3 of those. So yeah, that's this deck. Like I said, really, really controlling. Tons of ways to control the board, draw cards, and then we finish them off with absolutely unkillable giant, I guess this is an Eidolon, just a massive, massive dude. So yeah, this deck's sweet, and it runs like some really awesome cards like Deus Ex Machina, and you're gonna do stuff, just dropping a Deus Ex Machina, and then, you know, Acolyte lighting your opponent's stuff. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Yep. That's my Control Haven. Next up, we have Egg Haven. This is one of the top tier decks of the entire game right now, and it's also it's not too bad to build, honestly. Not too expensive. So we have our Shiny Eris here as our leader, and then we have our Evo deck sleeved up, of course, in Alice sleeves. This deck's all about our girl Alice here. All right, so essentially this is just an upgraded version of the last couple decks. This deck just tends to be very strong and is continuing to be very, very strong. We're not going to go over it too much. Basically, the new cards are the Demon's Epitaph and the Fina here. So running 3 of each of both of those. But other than that, we're keeping things basically the same, with a couple exceptions like adding in Angelic Snipe to help deal with Swordcraft. So we have our 3 of Alice, which is just super, super good. Like I said, we're not going to go over all these cards. We've talked about this deck to death. If you want a really in-depth, I have done full deck techs on this deck already, as well as gameplay, but like it's just super resilient of just pulling out fabled cards and just being able to burn down our opponent. The key cards, I'll go over the key cards real quick. So Alice is one of the key cards of the deck. She gets a fabled counter on her, and then she can actually move the fabled counter to other things, which is really, really solid. And then when you evolve her, she becomes a 4/4, and we're gonna look at the top 4 cards of our deck and take any 2 fabled cards from them and then put them in our EX area, which is just really, really good and synergizes well with our egg stuff. So we have 3 of that, 3 of the Evo version. Of course, we're running 3 of her in the main deck. She's like the key card for this deck. Andromeda was a great card in the last set. 1-drop 2/2, and then on Fanfare for the rest of this turn, your leader and each follower currently on your field, including this doesn't take ability damage. And that's really, really good with our our egg combo. So let's go ahead and grab good old Humpty Dumpty and the egg, and this is kind of like the other big thing for the deck. So Explosion and Humpty Dumpty are both fabled cards that we can get from Alice, and well, they deal damage to the board, which is great when our board can't be dealt damage through the likes of Andromeda here. So Humpty Dumpty is just a 3-drop 3/3, and it evos for 0. But when you evo Humpty Dumpty, he becomes a 4/4, but it doesn't matter. Well, it does actually kind of matter. So he evolves, becomes a 4/4, and it says deal 5 damage to each follower on the field, including himself, and then deal 3 damage to each enemy leader, but we have to discard our hand. So with Andromeda on the field, Humpty Dumpty cannot take damage, ability damage, so he doesn't kill himself, doesn't kill our stuff, but kills all of our opponent's stuff and shoots him in the face for 3 damage. Now we have to discard our hand, but it's not that big of a deal when we're filling our EX area up with fabled cards with some stuff like Alice. So the deck just works really, really well together. So running 3 of Humpty Dumpty, and then our other part to the egg burn is Explosion, which is a 3-drop fabled spell, and you deal X damage to each follower on the field and each enemy leader, where X equals the number of cards named Explosion or Humpty Dumpty in our cemetery plus 1. It doesn't count itself though. So yeah, just burn them out. You just burn them out. Like I said, we have deck techs and videos of this strategy already here on the channel, but yeah, it's just only gotten better with cards like Andromeda. Faria, just a nice little way to put fabled counters on our followers. Here's one of the new cards. We'll talk about the new cards. This is Demon's Epitaph. This card's really nasty. It's a 2-drop 2/3, and then you can evo it by discarding a card. And once again, we don't really care that much because we have to discard our hand anyway to Humpty evo. And then when it evolves, it becomes a 3/4 with Bane, and then on last words, deal 2 damage to each enemy leader. So we basically just kill anything on our opponent's board, and then also hit him in the face for 2. We're only running 1 copy of the Demon's Epitaph in the Evo, but we only really need 1. But we're running 3 in the main, just for the regular versions. We're running a full 3 of Fina to get our 1-drops. We have a lot of insanely powerful 1-drops, or kill our opponent's 1-drops. We have 1-drops like Faria, or like the aforementioned Andromeda. Very, very good stuff. We have Tin Soldier. The other way we burn our opponent out, we just remove fabled counters from him and then deal 3 damage to our, or deal 2 damage to a target. But the thing is we can keep putting counters on him through stuff like Alice or Faria, and you can just machine gun your opponent down. Pinion Prince is great. It just says select a fabled card in your cemetery and put it into your EX area, and you can put a fabled counter on it. So this is just another good way to fill up our EX area. And this is another one of our Evo cards, running 2 of him. And then on Evolve, he's a 5/6 with the sail. So it's just really good at killing stuff. Yeah, just really solid. Odette. This is a version where I'm actually running 2 Odettes. It's just great. It deals give +2 health to our leader and every follower on our field, and then on last words, same thing. Heal our leader for 2, and then 2 to the field. And it's also a fabled card, so we can get it off of any of our fabled effects. We're running Dark Jean in this version. I really like Dark Jean because of stuff like Andromeda. So Dark Jean is a 5/5 for 6. You can evo for 1, and you deal 2 damage to each other follower on the field, and then you give each follower on your field +2 attack. But once again, if you have Andromeda, well, your stuff doesn't take damage. And then she is our final Evo follower. We just have a single Dark Jean. It's a 6/6, and on Evo, if our leader's defense is at least 5, select an enemy follower on the field, deal it 4 damage, and then each leader 4 damage. So really good. Another way to burn out our opponent, wipe the board. Alice's Adventure is a great way to just, you know, get stuff. You search your deck for a fabled card, which is really good. You can also give Rush on a Sail to a fabled follower, which is great. March Hare's Tea Time, great way to just resurrect dudes from your discard pile. We have Angelic Snipe as the last card to just finish off any pesky things on the board. So yeah, that's Egg Haven. Yeah, that's basically it. It's really good, and it's really cheap to build. As you saw on this deck, there's very few legendary cards. Most of the cards are just like, you know, bronze, silver, and gold. With the exception of Alice, the deck is pretty affordable to build. Yeah, it's good. All right, let's finally talk about Thief's Sword. I've mentioned it a couple times already. This is another one of my favorite decks in the entire game right now. We have our homeboy Albert here as the leader for the Evo deck. These are the sleeves. The sleeves I'm rocking. Some sword-related sleeves. And yeah, we got a lot to talk about through this deck. This is a great one. This is a mid-range deck that can also function as an aggro deck. It's super, super powerful and definitely one of the best decks in the entire game right now. This deck is sorted mostly just by card cost rather than effect, but yeah, I mean, like, essentially, let's go over the big card of the deck. Let's go over Octress. This is kind of like our boss of the deck. So Octress is a 2-drop 2/2 that can evo for 2, or evo for 0 if our opponent has at least 10 cards in their cemetery. And then on Fanfare, each opponent takes the top 2 cards of their deck and put it in their cemetery. That's the theme of the deck. We want to take cards from the top of our opponent's deck and put it into the cemetery. We're just going to call that mill. And we can pay 8 and select a card in an opponent's cemetery and play it for 0 play points, which is kind of crazy. And so when she evolves, so we have 3 of her in the main deck. When Octress evolves, we get a steal stuff. She's so good. So she becomes a 4/4, and then on evolve, we select a card in an opponent's cemetery and we put it into our EX area. And then we can do the same thing. We can play 8 play points and select a card in an opponent's cemetery and play it for 0. And then also, if our opponent has 10 cards in their cemetery, cards we play from our EX area cost 2 less. So we steal our opponent's stuff, they cost 2 less, and we can also just play stuff from their bin as well. We're running a full set of the Octress and the Evo, and we are lucky enough to pull one of the ultimate rares. She's gorgeous. She's my favorite. All right, let's talk about some other usurpation stuff, other thief stuff. Servant of Usurpation, really good. He's just a 1-drop 1/2. On Fanfare, your opponent mills 1 card, and then every time they mill a card on our turn, he gets +1 attack. So every instance of mill. So if Octress mills 2, he gets 1 attack. If he mills 1, he gets 1 attack. And so he's essentially a 1-drop 2/2 that can also become a 3/2 and a 4/2. Very, very good 1-drop. We have a lot of really strong 1-drops in the deck. Here, let's skip. Here, let's take all of the effect cards, because I want to talk about the followers first, because the followers are definitely like the backbone of the deck. Swordsman is just a really classic card. 1-drop 2/1 that lets us engage enemy followers so we can attack into them and kill them. We have the 3 of Bellringer Angel. Like I said, you're going to see this in a lot of decks. Gums up the board. Really good early game, and really good with Fina in particular. We are running the 1 of Bellringer in our Evo deck to just deal 2 damage. Nice little tempo card here. Then we have Fina, which is, we get to look at the top top 5 cards of the deck and get a 1-drop, or we get to kill a 1-drop. Running a full set of Finas, we have a ton of 1-drops. We have the Bellringers, we have the Swordsman, and we have the Servant of Usurpation. Getting a Swordsman or a Servant is great. Any of these are great. Yeah, so Fina is always really, really powerful in this deck, so running a 3 of her. We have our classic Floral Fencer, running a full 3 of the Floral Fencers. This is just a card from the starter deck that's just great in every sword deck. It's a 3/3 that evos for 1, and then when you evo, she becomes a 4/4, and then you get a 1/1 and a 2/2 as well. You get a Knight token, and you get a Steelclad Knight token. So you get a 1-drop or a 1/1, and you get a 2/2. So Floor Fencer by herself just gums up the board with a ton of stuff. Really good card. So 3 in the main, and then I believe we have a 2 in the Evo deck. Next up, we have another sword staple, Gemstaff Commander. Simple card, 3-drop, 3/2. Search your deck for any SWORDCRAFT follower. Put it in your hand. Insanely powerful card. It lets us go get whatever we need for the situation at hand. And sometimes you go get this card, Disciple of Usurpation. This card's insane. It's a 3-drop, 3/2 with Storm. And then on strike, each opponent mills 1 card. And if they have 10 cards or more in their cemetery after that mill, she gets +2 attack permanently. So she becomes a 5/2, and then a 7/2, and then a 9/2. Game's over right then. But, there are turns, and you can see this in a recent gameplay video, me versus the Shadowverse Evolve World Champion. Gemstaff Commander into Disciple can close out games pretty quickly. So yeah, running 3 of her. We have Apostle of Usurpation. This card's an amazing mid-range card. 4-drop, 3/4, Evo for 1. Fanfare, each opponent mills 2. And then if there's at least 10 cards, you get a draw card, which is great. And then when you Evo him, he just kills stuff. So when you Evo him, he becomes a 4/5, and on Evo, select an enemy fall in the field and deal it 4 damage. Really good. So running 2 of him in the Evo deck. And I believe we're running 2... Oh, no, full 3. Full 3 in the main deck. Full 3 in the main deck. Running 2 of Olivia. That's the 2-drop. Or the 2 of. So some decks have cut Olivia. I still really like Olivia. She's just an insanely good tempo card. And she's a 5/5. 5-drop, 5/5. And then you can choose 2 of the following. Gain an Evo point. Heal for 3. Draw a card. Each opponent discards a card. Just so good. Just replaces itself. Potentially makes your opponent discard a card. You can heal for 3. She's really good. One of my favorite cards in the game. It's one of my favorite decks, so it makes sense. So running 2 of her. Next up, we have a 1 of Aurelia Regal Saber. This is a nice little toolbox card that I really like for this deck that you can go search up with our Gemstaff Commander. Really, really solid. And she's just a 5-drop, 4/6 with Rush, Assail, and Ward. However, on Fanfare, if our opponent has at least 3 cards on their field, she gets +2/+2 and Aura as well, becoming a 6/8 Rush, Assail, Ward, and Aura. That's very good. Very good. And then final card we have for the followers is just good old Leonidas. It's a 5/6 for 6, Evo for 1. And then when you evolve Leonidas, by the way, running 2 in the main deck and 2 in the Evo deck, when you Evo Leonidas, it becomes a 6/7. And then you select an enemy follower on the field and deal 5 damage to that follower and Leonidas. And then on last words, you get a Leonidas' Resolve, which is a amulet that says whenever a Swordcraft follower is put onto your field, you give it +3/+3 and Rush. This card just closes out the game so quickly. So yeah, Leonidas is really good. Really, really good. And then the last couple cards in the deck are some, removal spells. So we have Usurping Spellblade, 3-drop, deals 3 damage to enemy follower. Then they mill 1, and then if they have 10 cards in their cemetery, it deals an additional 2. So it's a 2-drop, 5 damage to a follower, quick speed if they have 10, but they also mill 1 as well, so it helps with that mill strategy. This is Angelic Snipe. So these are the promo versions of Angelic Snipe. I do have just kind of like the non-promo English versions here, just in case I need to use them. But these are the Japanese promo versions. 1-drop, 2 damage to any follower. Really good. I recently made a video talking about the best neutral cards, and I'm like, get your Angelic Snipes, get your Bellringer Angels, get your Finas. I put these in like so many decks. And then the final card is a 2 of Avarita. It's a 1-drop. You get to look at the top 4 cards of your deck and reveal a Thief card from among them, put it in your hand, and put the remaining on the bottom of your deck. If you reveal an Octress, you put this card also back into your hand. So you just get to do it again. So yeah, really good. And that is our Thief Sword deck. I really, really like this deck. Probably one of my favorite decks to play at the moment. I have like 4 decks that I really, really love right now. And this is definitely one of them. Yeah. Recommended. Next up, we have Dragoncraft. This is basically our Galmu Dragon deck. We'll talk about that as we go. Our leader here is Zernitra. This deck is a kind of like a mid-range-ish style deck, I would say. Here are our sleeves of choice. Both have Forte on them. This one in particular is absolutely beautiful. Just gotta theme it. Just gotta theme it, of course. I would also be honest. This is one of the decks that I've played less than some of the other ones out there, but it's still really, really good. And it's all centered around Galmu. So Galmu is a 5-drop, 5/5. She evos for 2. And then during her turn, whenever this follower takes ability damage, her evo becomes 0. And then when we evo Galmu, she becomes a 6/6 with some crazy effects. On evo, you select an Omen card that costs 2 play points or lesser on a cemetery, and then you just play it for 0. So she has a great resiliency, just recycling cards from our cemetery. And then during her turn, whenever she takes ability damage, select an enemy leader or follower and deal it 3 damage. And I've definitely been burned out by Galmu before. So this deck basically centers around dealing ability damage to our own units and then recycling our Omen cards. So yeah, it's good. It's really good. all backed up by our girl Forte here, which is one of my favorite cards in the entire game. One of my favorite characters, just to be honest. I'm big fan of Forte. I have a giant Forte tapestry here in the studio. Anyway, so we're running 3 of the Galmus. Hey, here's Forte. 4-drop, 5/1 with Storm. You can Evo her for 2. Just put this in every single Dragoncraft deck until the end of time. And the Evo version, she becomes a 7/3 with Storm and Aura. Of course, I gotta use my beautiful ultimate Forte, but we're just running 2 in the Evo deck. Still very strong. Of course, we run Dragon Oracle, just good old ramp card that turns into draw late game. One of the reasons I don't play Dragoncraft as much is a lot of the times it feels like the games really determine, like really are contingent upon, what's the right way to put this? You really want to get your turn 2 Dragon Oracle, otherwise it feels pretty bad. We'll put it that way. But it's still like doable otherwise. So let's talk about a lot of the rest of the deck, because we have a lot of low drops, because this is also a Prime Dragon Keeper deck. That's right, this is our Galmu PDK hybrid deck. So what does Prime Dragon Keeper do? Prime Dragon Keeper is a 3-drop 1/5. If Overflow is active for you on Fanfare, she gets +1/+1 and Intimidate, which is great. And then whenever another dragon follower that costs 3 or less play points is put into our field, select an enemy follower on the field, deal it 2 damage, and then 1 to the leader. So basically, we just want to play a bunch of little dudes, 3 play points or less. And it turns out a lot of the Galmu support, it's stuff that costs 3 play points or less. So as you can see, almost the entire rest of the deck. So here's the followers. All of them cost 3 play points or less. So they all synergize with Prime Dragon Keeper. So we have several powerful boss cards of the deck. So we have stuff like Galmu, we have Forte, and then we have PDK. And they just all really synergize with what we're doing. So let's go over some of the Apostle shenanigans. So, or not Apostle, but the Disdain shenanigans. These are all the Galmu support. So, Disciple of Disdain, 1-drop 1/2 for 0. You can select a follower on your field and deal it 1 damage, and you can lose that once per turn. Why would you do that? Well, you can deal 1 damage to our Galmu, to proc her, to deal 3 damage to something else, or a bunch of other stuff that we're going to talk about, like the Servant of Disdain, 2-drop 2/3. If Overflow is active for you, select a follower on the field, deal 1 damage to it and this follower. And then during your turn, whenever this follower takes ability damage, draw a card. So either from its own effect or from our Disciple, it helps us draw cards. So it's really good. So this is like a draw engine that also can do our like ping engine as well. Speaking of which, we have the Apostle of Disdain. This card is super good. 3-drop 2/4. For 1 play point, you can Evo her. And then during your turn, whenever this follower takes ability damage, it gets +1 attack and Storm. So this is just a really powerful card. However, what it does on Evo is also insane. So on Evo, it becomes a 3/5, and then you discard a card, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, and then from among them, you can reveal 2 Omen cards, and then you put them in your hand, and then put the remaining on the bottom of the deck in any order. So it's basically like a 4/5, or maybe not 4/5 because it'll take 1 damage, like a 4/4 Storm, draw 2 cards. Like, this card's real good. So running 2 of these in the Evo deck, and then the full 3 in the main. All right, we do have a couple other cards here. So we have the Dragon Summoner, really simple card, 2-drop 1/2, or 2-drop 1/3, excuse me, and then it can Evo for 1, running 3 in the main deck. And then on Evo, we're just running 1 Evo. But on Evo, it becomes a 2/4, and then you look at the top 3 cards of your deck, and then you can pick any dragon follower from among them, and then put it in your hand, which is really good. Nice little card advantage engine. And then we have 1 of Aqua Nereid. This is just really good with Prime Dragon Keeper. It says Ward, it's a 0/1, and then on Fanfare, summon a Mega Lorca token. And if Overflow is active for you, then you give that Mega Lorca token Storm, which is just a 2/2. But with PDK, that's 2 different triggers, right? Because with PDK, it just cares about 3-drop or less Dragoncraft followers. And hey, Aqua Nereid is a Dragoncraft follower, and Mega Lorca is also a Dragoncraft follower, so this triggers PDK twice. So that's pretty good. And then we have a 3 Draconeer. This is a card that just continues to see more play. It's a 3-drop 3/3. Evos for 1, and on Fanfare you summon a Draconic Weapon. So we have 3 in the main deck. A Draconic Weapon is just an amulet that says you can activate it, put it into your cemetery, and give a Dragoncraft fall in your field, +1 defense and the armed trait, which definitely can come up. And then when you Evo him, he becomes a 4/4. Select an enemy fall in the field and deal it 2 damage. If there's another armed fall in your field, deal it 4 damage instead. So you can use that Draconic Weapon to give something the armed trait, so you can deal 4 damage. Yeah, it's great. Running 2 of him in the Evo deck. And then the final cards of this deck, bunch of removal, bunch of stuff that helps deal damage to get those ping triggers off. So let's go over some of the general stuff first. So we have Serpent Wrath, quick speed, deal 5 damage to enemy follower, and if Overflow is active for you, draw a card. Really solid. Blazing Breath, 1 drop, deal 2 damage, or 4 damage if Overflow is active for you to an enemy follower. Once again, really solid, just generically good Dragoncraft stuff. And then here we have our basically our Galmu style support. So we have Disdainful Rending. You select an enemy or you select a fall on your field and an enemy follower on the field. 1 damage to your follower and 3 damage to the enemy follower. So just really good at, hitting our dude that lets us draw cards, hitting our Galmu, hitting the one that gets Storm. Yeah, just really solid. And then finally we have Total Domination. 2-drop spell. Select an enemy fall on the field, deal it 2 damage, and then deal 2 damage to it and each enemy follower on the field. Then if there's a Galmu on our field, deal 2 damage to each enemy fall on the field. So basically, it just deals like a ton of damage to the opponent's field. So really, really good. So yeah, that's our Galmu deck. I really like the PDK version of it because all of our support cards, like just Draconeer, Aquanariad, Apostle of Disdain, all of our Disdain cards are 3 drops or less. So they all trigger off a PDK, and then we can just kill our opponent through a combination of Galmu and Forte. Next up, we have SWORDCRAFT. Our leader of choice here is Michelle, though there's some other really, really nice ones that I'd like to pick up. We have our big old chunk of SWORDCRAFT tokens, and then we have our Evo deck here. Once again, got to show off the beautiful sleeves. I don't just buy these sleeves to collect them. I really like using them for this kind of stuff. All right, so this is our Elephant Storm deck. I've already done a full deck tech video on this as well. I've done some gameplay with this as well. So I'm going to try to be quicker on this one. I know I've not done a good job of this. This is going to be a really long video. But essentially, this is the exact same version with a couple new cards. So we're running Fina in this version. We're running Lyriel. We added in Starry Elf, which lets us search for amulets. We are putting in Spinaria, which is also really, really good. And I believe that's it. Oh, we're adding in Homecoming as well. So we have some updates to the deck. So essentially, this deck just wants to, play a bunch of cards that let you do some bounce shenanigans. So you play stuff like our Elfchild May, which deals damage on Fanfare. And then you can use cards to return her to our hand so we can replay her and get that trigger multiple times. We have stuff like Sakuna, Brave and Small, which is just a 1-drop 1/1. And then when you evolve her, let's go grab the Evo Sakuna. When you evolve Sakuna, she becomes a 2/2 with Storm. And then if on Evo you have combo 3, she gets +1/+1. And on combo 5, she gets +3/+3. She becomes a 5/5 with Storm, which is really, really good. And so that's kind of what we want to do. We just want to storm our opponent out. So we have stuff like Sakuna to kill our opponents. We have stuff like Elfchild May to clear up the board. We have stuff like Ancient Elf, which is just a SWORDCRAFT staple, which is a card that helps us bounce stuff back to our hand. And then on Evo, she just becomes really, really big. So on Evo, she becomes a 3/3. And then you can return a card from our field to its owner's hand, and she gets even bigger. And she also got even bigger from her other effect. So she becomes essentially like a 5/5 with Ward, which is just really, really good. That also bounces our stuff to get our those bounce triggers. So Ancient Elf, really good. 3 in the main. We have Marvelous Sunday, another card that's just really good at bouncing our stuff. She's a 2/3. And then on Fanfare, we get a bounce card from our field to our hand. Bouncing just means taking a card from our field and returning it to our hand. And then we heal for 2. So we get to return a card to our hand and heal for 2, which is great. We're running Crystalia Tia in this version. So she's a 2-drop 1/1. However, if you've comboed 3, so if you've played 3 cards, you get an Eve token. The Eve tokens are just 4/4s. However, I mean, well, just a 4/4, but they also get pumped up when you evolve our Tia. On evolve, you pick one of your Eve tokens, and then you give it +1/+1 and a Rush. So you can make it a 5/5 with Rush, and then Tia also has Rush, and then you can do some, you know, shenanigans. So we have one Evo Tia, and then we have 2 main deck Tias. Just one of our nice little combo payoffs. We have Lily. Lily is insane. We're running 2 copies of Lily. You could maybe bump this up to 3. Lily's a 2-drop, 1/3. You can also Evo for 2. Fanfare, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, and you can reveal a Crystallian or Pixie follower from them, and then put it into your hand, which is great. So, you know, we can get like Tia or any of the Pixie followers. But on Evo, she becomes a 2/4, and you select an enemy following the field, and you put it on the bottom of their deck, which is nuts. So we have 2 of the Evo Lilies. Every time we play Lily, we want to evolve her. She's so good. So we have 2 main deck, 2 Evo deck. Once again, hey look, here's Fina. You've seen Fina, you know Fina at this point if you've been watching it all. I'm not gonna go over her again. We have a lot of 1-drops, kills 1-drops, she's good. Here's Lyrial Archer Throne. Once again, really powerful card, really annoying, makes it so we don't take ability damage, and she can hit our opponents for damage as well. Super, super solid. Here's the Starry Elf that I mentioned, just a 1-of, 3-drop, 3/3 Fanfare. We search for an amulet and put it in our hand, which is really good. We can go grab any of the amulets that we really care about, like this Inviolable Verdancy or the Spring Green Protection, or something like Harvest Festival. Yeah, good stuff. Well, those are the only 2. We're going to go one of those 2. We have the Elven Princess Mage. This is a great little card because of the Evo effect. And the Evo effect, she becomes a 4/4, and then you put 2 Fairy Wisp tokens in your EX area. Running 2 of her in the Evo deck, and running 3 of her in the main deck. And she's so good because we really want those Wisp tokens in our EX area, because they're just 0-drop 1/1s. And that 0-drop is how we're gonna do the big storm counts like Tia and like Sakuna. So the Wisps are very, very strong. So yeah, that's a great card. One of the new cards we put in is Spinaria. Spinaria is a 5-drop, 3/5. Fanfare, look at the top 4 cards of our deck. From among them, we can reveal up to 1 Forest Follower and 1 Forest Spell, and then put them in our hands, put the remaining cards on the bottom of our deck in any order, and then combo 3, recover 3 play points. So it's really good, really, really solid. And she has Ward too. Yeah, she's great. So we have a full set of Spinarias. We are running the full Cassiopeias in the deck once again. Just another great little card. 5-drop, 4/5. Select an enemy, or select any number of enemy followers on the field and deal X damage divided between them, where X equals the number of cards in our hand and EX area. So yeah, just another great way to clear up the board. And she's also a 4/5. So yeah, really good. And then our big finisher is the King Elephant. As we've discussed many times, he just kills our opponent dead. He's a 6-drop, 1/1, Evos for 4, and he has Storm. However, on Fanfare, you select any number of cards in your field and you return them to your owner's hand. And then give this follower +X, where X equals the number of cards in your hand. So you bounce your board, he gets huge, and then you Evo him. He's going to be the last Evo card in our deck. We just have 1. But we Evo him, and on Evolve, he gets another +X, where X is the number of cards in our hand. And then he ignores Ward. So the idea is to just bounce a bunch of stuff to your hand, give him like, I don't know, +10, and then just kill our opponent. Yep, that's kind of the plan with the deck. Then we have some other things, other ways to facilitate stuff. So we have cards that care about bouncing. So we have this card, the Inviolable Verdancy. You can cost 1 play point. You can play a play point and activate it. Put this into the cemetery, select a Forest Follower field, give it +1. Combo, give it another +1. So you can give it +1 defense, combo, give it +1 attack. But it's more importantly, when this leaves the field, put a Fairy Wisp token into our EX area. So this is a card that we want to play and then bounce back to our hand over and over, filling up our EX area with those 0-drop Fairy Wisps. Super, super important. Yeah, this is a card that we just kind of keep bouncing multiple times. And then we have Harvest Festival. Similar thing, we can activate it, put it in the cemetery, and we heal for 1. But more importantly, when this leaves the field, draw a card. Not when it's put in the cemetery, when it leaves the field for any reason. So once again, we want to get this card out and then keep bouncing it and drawing a whole bunch of cards. That's what we want to do. So these are the two big ones that we want to just bounce back to our hand a whole bunch of times. We also have Nature's Guidance, which is a card that helps us do that. It's a 1-drop, select any card in our field, return it to its owner's hand, and then draw a card. So that's great, we're running a full playset of these. And then the final new card we have in this deck is Homecoming. We're actually running 2 of these. And Homecoming is a 3-drop spell from the first set, so this is kind of a callback. Select an enemy following the field. Its controller puts it on the top or bottom of its owner's deck. However, for combo 5, each opponent puts each follower from their field on the top or bottom of their deck instead. That is brutal. This is a full board wipe if you can do that combo 5. So if you can, somehow do combo 5 and then play this is a, 3-drop, then you can just board wipe the opponent. Really, really solid. So, yep, that is the updated version of Elephant Storm. It's still really, really strong and just kills people out of nowhere. And the final deck today is Umamusume. This is kind of like Umamusume's last hurrah, as the previously restricted cards got unrestricted. This deck is still pretty good. I want to mention, though, that this is kind of like a not super full powered, my version of it, just because I do not have the extra Agnes Tachyons. Those Agnes Tachyons are in the Rune deck that you saw at the beginning, and I don't want to swap them out. So we'll talk about what I put in instead of the Agnes Tachyons. And if you don't have the Agnes Tachyons, this deck is dirt cheap to build, and it's still really, really strong. So leader of choice here is Narita Taishin. Super cute. And then here we have our Evo deck. I don't have Umamusume sleeves, so here we have Azure Lane sleeves instead. Still beautiful. And I don't have an Umamusume playmat, so here we have a Grand Blue Fantasy playmat instead. All right, so the key cards of this deck are Die with Scarlet and Vodka. This deck is essentially like a mid-range aggro deck that just has so much resiliency, a ton of card draw, and even without the Agnes Tachyon is very, very powerful. What we lose by not having Agnes Tachyon is the ability to buy back our spells. But we basically have everything else. So yeah, this deck is super strong. So Die with Scarlet. She is a 4-drop, 3/4. On Fanfare, you search your deck for any Umamusume spell, reveal it, and add it to your hand. And as such, we have once again, we have what I'm going to call a toolbox of Uma cards. So we have, here's a little toolbox of Uma spells, as well as just our Uma spells in general. We'll go over these at the end, but yeah, just a nice little bunch of Uma cards, Uma spells. So we search for an Uma spell, which is awesome. And then while this is on our field, the first Uma spell we play, each turn costs 1 less to play, which is very, very powerful, both on our turn and our opponent's turn. And then whenever we play a spell, if it's our third this turn, select an Umamusume fall in your field, and then you give it and this Storm. So basically what she wants us to do is we want to play a bunch of spells, and then give stuff Storm and just kill our opponent. Yeah, Die with Scarlet is the best card in the deck. And because the Uma deck this doesn't really do anything outside of the Uma deck, this is a really, really cheap card to pick up. We have the other synergy card, Vodka. So Vodka is a 3-drop, 3/3. However, if we have a Die with Scarlet on our field, she costs 2 less to play. So for 5, you can play Die with Scarlet and Vodka, which is what you want to do. You basically want to wait till you have both of these at the same time, because Vodka says she's a 3/3, and then once per turn, whenever we play a spell, give each Umamusume follower on our field +1/+1 on Rush. That's insane. So our whole board just gets +1/+1 and Rush every time we play a spell, and then she goes and gets the spells and makes them cheaper, so we can just pump our board, make them so big, and we just kill our opponent. So yep, that's what we do. She also has Race for 1. I should mention this. Die with Scarlet also can erase for 1. What Race does is it costs 1 play point, and then you take a carrot from your Evo deck. We're running 5 carrots in our Evo deck. And then you just stick it under your Umamusume, and then it just gains Rush. And then potentially some other effects. So yeah, there's that. So we're running the 3 vodkas. We're also running special weeks. So we have 3 special weeks. She's really simple. 2-drop, 2/2. Evo for 1. You can erase her for 1. And then a Fanfare, look at the top card of your deck. If it's an Umamusume card, reveal it and put it into your hand. All the cards are Umamusume cards, so you always reveal it and we put it into our hand. So it's really good. Well, we have 1 not Umamusume card. We're running 1 not Umamusume card. And then the Evo version is Special Week. Special Week is a 3, or the Evo, she becomes a 3/3, and then if Overflow is active for you, give each other Umamusume follower +1/+1. So running 2 of the Evo versions of that, plus all the carrots. Yeah, so she's great. She draws a card, pumps her board. Next we have Narita Top Road. This is a card that actually you want to race, so you typically want to save your racing effects for cards like Top Road here. So Top Road is a 3-drop 3/3 race for 1. On race, you give her +1/+1, and then you draw 2 cards and then discard a card, which is great. So it's kind of like an Evo effect. So we're running 2 of her. I started putting these in different piles. Oh no, I didn't. This is the spell pile. What am I doing? Next up, we have Ikuno Dictus. This is one of the cards that was previously restricted to 1. Now we can run a full playset. So this is a 3-drop 2/4, has race, has ward, and then on Fanfare, look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You can reveal an Amulet or Umamusume card from among them, put it in your hand. That's great. So you basically just get to draw the best card from the top 3. So running a full playset of her. We have Maruzensky. I mentioned this before. Maruzensky is one of my favorites. Yeah, she can Evo for 1, race for 1, Necro Charge 10, select an enemy fall in the field, give it -4/-4, and then when you Evo Maruzensky, she becomes a 4/4, and then she can give something else -2/-2. So we run 1 copy of the Evo, and then 2 copies in the main. And so the card that I chose to run instead of Agnes Tachyon is Silence Suzuka. And I think it's a good option. First of all, this card's really easy to get. And second of all, she's really, really powerful. She doesn't do the same kind of things that Tachyon does, but she closes the game out. She kills people. So Silence Suzuka is a 4-drop 4/1 with Storm, and you can race her for 1. There's no point in doing that, but you can also evolve her for 2. And when you evolve Silence Suzuka, she becomes a 5/2, still has Storm, and you select an enemy fall on the field and you put it on the top of their deck. I'm running 2 copies in the Evo deck to round out the rest of the Evo deck, and we're running 3 in the main deck. So she just storms her opponent for 5 damage to the face and puts their best thing on top of their deck, so they have to draw it. It's really good. Next up, we have Rice Shower. Rice Shower is a 3/5 with Ward. You can race her. Fanfare, select an enemy fall on the field and deal it 3 damage, and put the top 2 cards of our deck in our cemetery. And then when she dies, we get to pick an Umamusume follower with a different name than Rice Shower from a cemetery and put it to our hand. So really, really efficient. Gums up the board, kills something, and then she gets something back when she dies. Really strong. Next, we have a 1 of Oguri Cap as our finisher, or another one of our finishers, I should say. She's a 6-drop 4/4, and you can race her for 1, race her 2 times for 2, or race her 3 times for 3. And then every time you race her, she gets +2/+1. And then on Fanfare, you can discard 2 cards and give her Storm. And then on Strike, she deals 3 damage to each enemy follower on the field. So if you do the 3, she gets +6/+3. So she can attack for 10. And if you discarded 2 cards, she has Storm. So 10 Storm and then 3 damage to the opponent's board. Really good. Riko Kashimoto, Planned Perfection, is one of my favorite cards in the entire game. Once again, I mentioned this in the neutral cards video. She is a Tracen Academy type card, not an Umamusume card, though she can go in an Umamusume deck. I wanted to point that out because she's not an Umamusume card for effects that care about Umamusume cards, like Ikuno Dictus or like Special Week. So just keep that in mind. She's technically a Tracen Academy type card, but she's still really good. I'm running 2 of her in the deck. 6-drop, 6/6 rush, that on strike, you can, if you have no other followers in your field, you can blow up something on your opponent's field and then deal them 3 damage. This is the great equalizer. She's super, super good. And then our final top end card, we have Narita Bryan. She's crazy, crazy good. 6/8 with Bane, Ward, and Aura. I always forget one of these things. And then you can activate her to select an enemy leader or follower and deal it 5 damage. Super, super good. So you can just like shoot your opponent for 5, and then they have to deal with a 6/8 with Bane, Ward, and Aura. Really good. So I have 2 of them. And then finally we have all of our Uma spells. Let's go over the easy ones first. Lamplit Training. You saw this in the Rune deck. Just quick speed, deal 2 damage. And then if we have a racing follower, we get to deal 3 damage instead. That's really good. So this can come up every now and then in the Uma deck. We have Make Some Noise. It's a 2-drop, deal 3 damage. And if we have an Umamusume card, deal 4 damage instead. Really, really solid. So 3 damage or 4 damage. We have Trial Initiation. This is another one of those cards that was restricted that we can now have a full playset. It's just a 1-drop, and then we can choose one of the following. We can look at the top 2 cards of our deck. We can reveal an Umamusume card from among them, put it in our hand. Or we can select a BNW follower in our cemetery and add it to our hand. We're just going to look at the top 2 cards of our deck and pick an Uma card. So, yeah, that's really good. And then we have our 1-ofs. Well, okay. Solo drawn to raindrop drums, not a 1-of. It's a 2-of. So it's a 4-drop, quick speed. If there's at least 10 Uma cards in our cemetery, it costs 2 less to play. Otherwise, it just selects an enemy follower on the field and destroy it. So it's either 2-drop or a 4-drop. But either way, you get to select an enemy follower and blow it up. So really, really good at quick speed. Now we have the 3 1-drop, or 3 1-ofs. So we have Flowers for You. It's a really simple card. It's just a 1-drop. Select an Uma follower on the field, you give it +1 attack, and then you draw a card. And then if we have a Seiyun Sky, it gets pumped up. We're not running Seiyun Sky, so it's just going to be +1 and then draw a card. Just a nice little way to cycle it through a deck. Outrunning the Encroaching Heat is insanely good. This is a 2-drop. Select a follower on our field and give it Storm. If it's an Umamusume follower, also give it +1/+1. And then we have 7 more centimeters. If you're actually able to pull this card off, it is kind of insane. So it's a 5-drop. This card can only be played if there are at least 20 Umamusume cards in your cemetery. Then you destroy each enemy follower, draw 3 cards, and then each opponent discards 3 cards. This card's wild. It's really wild. And that's why it's just a 1-of in the deck. Same with Outrunning the Encroaching Heat. We can always go tutor for them with our girl Daiwa Scarlet. Like I said, she's kind of like the linchpin of the deck. Both of these cards are. So you don't technically really need Agnes Tachyon. Agnes Tachyon just helps you with removal, and she also helps you kind of buy back one of your spells, but it's not needed, and the deck is still really good without it. So I'm still running this Uma deck while I can, because, you know, in a set or two, it's going to be obsolete. So I still like the Uma, and might as well play it while we can. And that's going to do it for today's video. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you have watched all the way to the end, I don't even know, man. Like, kudos to you. No one's going to watch this far. I don't know. If you've watched this far to the end, comment your favorite card in Shadowverse Evolve. I don't know. But you know what? Shout out to you. You're the real ones watching this right now. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff, and stay tuned for more Shadowverse Evolve content here on Red Zone Rogue. We're going to be doing this again for the Paragons of the Colosseum set in a few weeks. Stay tuned for that. We'll see you then. Bye!